So State's Attorney Fox, we're going to start this lightning round with you.
Yes.
You can answer this yes or no. You've
Yes
all
or
been
no, maybe so.
You've all been really good with time. So if you have an extra sentence
right.
you want to add, I'm not going to let Peter cut you off. I, of course, would not do that. So the first question, State's Attorney Fox, would you support legislation to change the possession of a small amount of drugs from a felony to a misdemeanor?
Absolutely.
Mr. Conway.
Yes, absolutely. I saw it happen in Washington, D.C. when I was a defense attorney there as a law student, and it seemed to work great.
Okay. Next question in the lightning round, Mr. Conway, we'll start with you. Would you support legislation that increases the dollar value threshold for prosecuting theft and retail theft as a felony, since Illinois threshold is among the lowest in the country?
For me, that one's a bit more nuanced, because I think about one-off. I look at the intent of retail theft when I think about, you have one-off retail theft versus organized retail crime. And if we were to raise the threshold and we then wanted to prosecute organized retail crime that happened below that threshold, it would have to fit into a bucket of either a continuing financial crimes enterprise or a robbery, which involves a use of force. And if it didn't, then we wouldn't be able to do that. So I want to make sure that there's a proper statute to get after organized retail crime if we are going to raise the retail theft threshold.
Right. State's Attorney Fox.
Why, yes, I wouldn't agree with that. We have one of the lowest thresholds in the country for felony retail theft. I think it's important for us to remind our constituents of that. Our felony threshold is $300. I'm going to take my Bob Fioretti time. In the liberal bastion of Indiana, it's $750. In Wisconsin, it's $2,000. In Minnesota, it's $1,000. In Iowa, it's $900. I would go through the entire map, but 47 other states have a higher threshold, much higher. The Pew Research Institute did a study that found that the raising of the felony threshold did not, despite the political rhetoric that you hear, have people running out and stealing $998 worth of stuff prior to taxes. That is absurd. And we still do prosecute retail theft rings. I want us to understand that what we are doing, the reason the prison population in Illinois has decreased at a higher rate in the last 3 years is because fewer people have gone to prison for retail theft for these amounts where they were going for months. And so there's actually not much nuance to this. The felony threshold should be in line with the 47 other states that have gotten it right before we did.
State's Attorney Fox, this one goes to you. Will your office commit to charging the lowest level crime that still promotes public safety?
Yes, one of the things that we've been working on and has often been used in debates against me is making sure that we aren't overcharging people. The reality is, and I will say it here, and Mr. Conway can address it if he likes, is that the state's attorney's office had a practice of laying on multiple charges so that people would feel compelled to plead to something. That's why I think it is absurd if you can charging people with 16 counts for something that you can charge them with 2. But that's a practice. And so our office has been working, and hence when I sometimes get publicly frustrated when I see us define what I think our mandate is, which is to not overcharge and to charge only what is appropriate, is important. And so that is my commitment. That is what we have been working on, is ensuring that our office is not overcharging for purposes of eliciting pleas.
Mr. Conway.
Yeah, I yes. And what the issue often is that a higher class felony will be charged when a lower class felony is appropriate. So, for example, I saw many cases where, in fact, for years, every armed robbery I saw also would have an attempt murder charge with it, because before that thing, and it's that sort of thing where clearly in those situations you can't prove the attempt murder beyond a reasonable doubt, so you just should only be charging the armed robbery. We need to be charging people with crimes that can be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, not overcharging to incentivize that person to plead guilty to something.
Thank you. This is obviously an ACLU forum, so this next question will make a lot of sense. Mr. Conway, beginning with you, what is your favorite protection guaranteed under our Constitution? I know it's not a strictly yes/no question, but we have some extra time.
No, I think there's a lot of great ones, but I would say freedom of speech. That's the one that is the one that makes sure that we get our views and maintains our democracy. You know, and I say that, like I said in my opening, you know, I fought for freedom overseas, and I commend the ACLU for protecting our freedoms here at home. And that would be the one I would choose as our most important.
Thank you. State's Attorney Fox.
I concur. I think the freedom of speech is I hate to say the most important, but one that I value most. I think it allows for those, particularly those who have dissent, to ensure that their voices are heard. I think oftentimes I'm in places where I don't agree with things that people are being said, but appreciate the fact that we live in a place where they have the right to say them. Having seen what is attempting to be done to our country now under this administration, and the silencing of voices or the persecution and prosecution of those who are dissenting, I think now more than ever we need more people speaking up, speaking loudly, speaking on behalf of those who don't have access to speak, to dissent loudly and to dissent proudly.